Okay, good afternoon. Neil here with the Off the Lip Radio Show, my series Who's Who in Santa Cruz. I am here with these two handsome gentlemen.
You said knuckleheads the first time.
I said knucklehead?
Yeah,
you guys went up in my book.
Yeah.
Especially since you tried to get the Wi-Fi going, I didn't get it going. Okay, Mr. Dave Loustalot right here, Mr. Tim Loustalot right here. We're here to pay tribute to their father, the former director of golf, head professional at De La Viega Golf Course. Dave, top 3 memories of De La Viega Golf Course for you are? Before we're going to get to your dad in a second.
My top memories here, growing up here, running around in the trails, hunting golf balls, getting into trouble.
Yeah. Didn't we do that? Get in trouble, didn't we? A couple times.
We've been getting in trouble here since we were about 7 years old. So the trouble that I got in with you was much later, but no less invigorating, the trouble we got in. And my favorite part about this place is coming up here on any day and seeing all the people that I've known for 54 years.
Yeah, I see all the faces.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's also nice to see the kids over here, the next generation coming up playing golf, you know. It's really good to see.
Oh yeah, no, the
Right.
player development or the junior golf development here is some of the best in the state.
Yeah.
And, you know, my dad was a huge advocate of
Kids golf.
junior golf.
Yeah.
That was one of his.
Well, he
You
had
got
no
two more.
cho-
You got 2 more.
No, he had no choice but to be a huge advocate for junior golf because he had to
They were his.
give us something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had 3 sons. He needed to put us out where someone else was taking care of us.
Basically, the golf course is a nursery for you guys.
It was
a nursery.
It was a babysitter,
Huh?
for sure.
Yeah, 1 road in, 1 road out.
One road in, we lived at the bottom of the hill. So we couldn't even.
And you know we had one eye open on the hill.
all the time, all the time.
Got a couple more memories for you?
Oh gosh, I got married here
Yeah.
at the Rangeside Bar,
Yeah.
formerly known the Men's Club Shack, which was an awesome 25 years this year.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's gonna be fantastic.
October 10th.
October 1st.
October
Thanks for
1st.
remembering.
Yeah.
Oh, that's close enough.
It's a one.
And what else? There's too many to think about. Playing golf with you was probably one of the highlights
Yeah.
of
That's a
my
good
life
call.
up here.
Remember we did that running golf? Remember we ran?
We did.
Yeah.
That was at the very beginning of the waterproof glove.
Was it?
Because remember, we'd play in the morning and the grips would get all wet, and
Yeah.
we'd take a swing and the club would go flying.
Right.
So, see, this is why we like De La Viega, is you get these folks wandering in.
Wandering around,
Yeah.
wondering what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
You got one more, Dave. You got one
That
more.
was it.
That's a lot. That's more
a
than
lot.
3. Yeah.
Is it more than 3? Okay, you're done.
I'm done.
Timmy, you?
Oh boy, geez, memories here. One of my first memories was when my dad used to host the Invitational back in the mid '70s, and it was really a high-flying event. It was a double shotgun. It was 8 a.m. in the morning for the first wave of 140 plus players.
A lot of the guys from the Pebble Beach came played here.
Oh no, it was just a big club back then, and then they had the afternoon shotgun at 1. And one of the things Dave will remember, you know, you only had enough carts for the first wave, so my dad used to rent golf carts for the, you know, have them all set up for the second wave. And one of our jobs was they got delivered on Friday night, and they were set right up here on this bluff.
Yeah.
And me and Dave and a couple of our friends in town, we were the security firm. My dad says, you just make sure none of these 70 carts that were delivered tonight leave the premises. We need them all tomorrow morning. And right about 8:30 or 9, when it got a little dark and Dad went back down the house, the 4 of us would get in those things and we'd drive them out to number 17. We'd drive around out there, and those were the old 3-wheel Yamahas.
Oh yeah.
Remember those gas things? And we
Yeah.
just had a ball with those.
And we'd camp out on the deck.
We'd sleep up
sleep
here all
on the
night.
deck.
And, but I was, you know, really into golf, you know. So when I was at that age of 8, 9, 10, 11, my fond memories were being able to play with the adults.
Yeah.
And my group was a gentleman named Irv Bader. Irv Bader was one of my dad's was the cart mechanic.
The mechanic. Yeah.
My dad hired Irv away from the old surf bowl, now called the boardwalk bowl. He was the pin setter then, and he became the cart attendant, mechanic, and he lived in the little apartment here.
Yeah.
And
Which is now Tim's office. Used to
so
be
yeah,
Irv's.
so Irv was, and then Tommy Velasquez, not the former police officer, retired, but his dad, Tommy Sr., and then another police officer, Deep Pizzola. those were my 3 guys that I got to play with, which was a big thing for me because I was under 10, and being able to go out and play with adults was everything.
And having a police officer in the group was good as well.
And it was a lot of fun. And then naturally, like Dave said, just having this as your backyard is a great way to grow up for sure.
And you guys were all interested in golf. I mean, I think my father did. I didn't want to do. And you guys were just all interested. You and your brother Mike, you guys were all interested in golf.
Yeah, I think that's a reflection of my father. I mean, David, I think he would agree, is that my dad never pushed the game on us at all.
No.
And what a great thing to happen. You know, he ran a golf course. We had access to the golf course. He really never pressured us.
He was not a teacher. He could teach, but he never said, okay, we're going to go teach you how to play golf. It was like literally, we'd come up here, he'd be working in the office or in the shop, because in those days he was in the front. There was no hiding in the back. It was just him and a small group of people. Yep. And he'd look at us and say, you know,
scatter.
You know, go figure out something to do. And the golf course was brand new. It wasn't a lot of folks, so we'd just bang around. And
when was the golf course?
It was actually on the rolls in the late '60s.
Yeah.
Carl Bingston, who was the parks director at the time for the city of Santa Cruz, they were starting to investigate the opportunity to get a golf course here on this property. At that point, this property was owned by the county.
Yeah.
So they did a deed of trust thing, and they gave it to the city of Santa Cruz to develop this golf course. It was built and opened in May 14th of 1970. So yeah, with the exception of the 2 COVID years where we had a little bit of the delay with, we were shut down for 45 days in COVID for 2020.
Yeah.
It's been open, it'll be 55 years this coming May of 25.
Correct, your dad grew up in Fresno, right? Is that right? Or
no,
Central Valley, right?
He was born in Oakland,
okay.
Grew up in Redding.
Oh, okay.
His dad our grandfather was the head professional at Riverview Country Club in Redding.
Correct.
And that's where my dad grew up, went to high school, Shasta High. And then he went from there to Sacramento, worked for Granddad, and then went to Fresno. And then thank goodness he got a job in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, no, there's actually
It was a long list of professionals that one of the.
Well, yeah, there was, and you know, I don't know the exact number, but it was excess of like 25 to 30. It could have been more, but there's a neat story about that. My dad, as David alluded to, he was still running Sunnyside Country Club in Fresno, and he got there in 67, 68, 69 as the golf course came online here in Santa Cruz. The city manager here at Santa Cruz at the time was named Dave Kester. Dave's father was a member of a club up in Roseville called Sierra View. Mr. Kester's father at Sierra View, one of his best friends was a gentleman named Mr. Michinella. His son worked for my dad in Sunnyside. So anyway, my dad's at Sunnyside, his assistant is Steve Michinella.
Yeah.
And Steve Michinella comes to my father and says, you know what, they're building a course in Santa Cruz, and my dad knows the city manager's son. And
boom.
And I got the inside track.
So Steve had the inside.
Steve was like right on the money to get this thing to come to the coast. So after further review, when the city of Santa Cruz sent out the request for proposal, one of the criteria was the pro has to have 2 years of PGA experience under a Class A. Steve Michinella, who's worked for my dad, it only had like 8 months.
Right.
So my dad went to Steve, hey, Steve, guess what? You're like 14 months short of being even eligible for that job.
Right.
I got a deal. Why don't you go tell your dad in Roseville that I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'll come to the coast, start to La Viega, and I'll make sure that you get the head pro job here at Sunnyside.
Wow.
So my dad went in front of the board after he was elected to be the pro here. Went to the board in Sunnyside, said, I'm resigning, and your next pro is right here. I don't think you need to do a job search.
Yeah.
And Steve Michinella became the head pro, and he was there for 50 plus years.
Yeah, he retired after 50 plus years.
So it worked out for both families.
Where'd the name come from? Where'd the name come?
Family name. It's Vicente de la Viega. There's a little historical event up at the Golf Lodge where the restaurant talks about his history. But he owned all this property in the late 1800s. His vision was to have it kind of be the Golden Gate Park of Santa Cruz County.
Yeah.
Your dad's cocktail was?
The one in front of him.
What was
sorry?
What was his drink of choice?
When we were growing up, it was a VO and water.
Yeah.
And then it morphed into just a vodka.
Vodka on ice.
And I learned a valuable lesson at about 12 years old. My dad had a drink. It looked like this. It had the debris in the bottom, and he says, "Hey, go pour me another one." And I'm like, okay. So I took it and what did I do?
Good 12.
What did I do? I threw the ice out into the sink in the other room, and he hears me. He's like, what did you just do? And I'm like,
Threw out the ice.
he goes,
That's like marinated
you
ice.
never throw out the ice, right? So I learned a valuable lesson at 12 or 13 that when your dad asks you to make another drink, you don't throw out the ice.
And it always had to be Smirnoff.
Yeah.
Neil,
That's the only
I'll
one he
go
would
back
drink.
to something Dave said earlier, which is pretty important. And back in the early days when my dad really spent a lot of time out front in the counter, growing the business, growing the community golf, really interacting. I mean, he had to develop this from ground zero. He was at all the breakfast clubs, at the Chamber of Commerce events. He was wherever he needed to be to get De La Viega in a position to be successful.
Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a club or a golf course that was already developed, and he was just kind of carrying on a tradition. He had to build it from ground zero. And that's what really attracted him to this job. It was new. It was a brand new club. There was no history prior. So, and he loved that. But, he really was such an effective promoter.
In a quiet way.
Fantastic.
Very much so.
Very,
Yeah.
very quiet way. He
Yeah.
didn't.
And
He didn't toot his horn too many
No,
times.
he really, really
What-
loved doing that.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this: what foursome do you think your dad would want to? If you could choose a foursome that your dad would want to play in, who would? I'm gonna ask you the same thing. Who do you think you'd like to play with?
I think we agree on the same one guy.
Mike and Tim and Dave.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who would you think? Who would you say?
Well, I mean, he was a Hogan guy, and I said, I mean, there's a lot of different stories about Ben Hogan, but he, as Pops was one of the best salesmen, reputable salesmen in Northern California. He got invited back to Fort Worth and got to spend 4 days with Mr. Hogan at the
Hang on, watch out for the camera right there.
at the plant,
Yeah.
and the picture he got with Ben, so there, I think Ben would be, that's who my dad.
Did
grew
you
up
ever
with.
hear the story about what Hogan said? What he said to Hogan?
No.
So my dad becomes best
I
friend.
ended up meeting Ben later too, by the
He,
way.
he
Yes.
becomes the best friend with whomever he's with,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, and so he's at this Hogan event. Hogan brings people in
Yep.
because they're all Hogan staff members.
Yep.
And so my dad's standing next to Hogan on the first tee at Shady Oaks.
Shady Oaks.
Shady Oaks. And there's guys standing up there hitting different make clubs, different drivers off the first tee. And my dad's watching this, and Hogan's standing there watching this, and my dad, this is his story. He looks over, he goes, Mr. Hogan, he goes, if the only club I had in my bag that was a Hogan club was a wedge, I'd be hitting that wedge off this first tee. The fact these guys are hitting something else is beyond me.
Right.
And Hogan kind of looked at him like, I agree.
Well, that's an interesting. I never knew that story.
And that's why the picture of him, he's got his
Yeah.
arm around him. It's
Yeah,
not,
I actually fast forward 40 years later when I was involved with Callaway Golf when I was playing professionally. I was at the new training center down in Carlsbad, and Ely Callaway was walking the range line. There was some other pros there. I mean, Annika Storrs was there, and I remember Johnny Miller was also there, and Rocco and some other guys. And he had a brand new TaylorMade burner in his hand, and he was walking around out, and he came to me first, and I said, I will not hit that club in front of you. I appreciate the
Really?
offer. And I really want you to try it. I mean, this is a new hot thing on the market. Everybody's talking about the bubble shaft.
Yeah.
And I just decided not to hit it. And actually, he invited me up to his office the next day. He was having an interview with a German newspaper, and he just let me sit in on it, which was very gracious of him. And I love the one thing the gal asked him, the news reporter said, Mr. Callaway, how many heads of state are using the Big Bertha driver now? And he opened up the right top drawer of his desk, and he probably goes, Francis Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl and Bill Clinton. He doesn't know all the people that are in his personal Rolodex.
Right,
But I didn't know that story about Dad. You never, that's a great point. You don't hit a product that doesn't have the person's name on it that's invited you to the event.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like bringing a bottle of wine to a winery.
You know what I like too about you see here is generations get like we've had kids. My kid was born down the street, and I bring him up here in a bassinet. Now he's 33 years old. So many
Our
generations.
kids were born.
So many generations have come through here.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
great.
it's a great spot, and
It's great.
again, you see the kids, and you see
scar-
generations.
The
that are-
scary part for me, or the cool part for me, Neil, is, I'm 60 years old. I've been here since 1968, right? And I see people, I'll go somewhere. I went on a little tour the other day, and this guy I walk up to, he's probably 25. He's like, "Hey, are you a Loustalot?" And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, I used to work for your brother at Delavier." I have other people say, "Hey, I used to work for you." And unfortunately, so many people worked up here
Yeah.
that you're like, "Oh, you did."
Yeah.
Right? And the next thing is, did I fire you, or how did it go?
Right.
But that's the cool part is you just see all these different people in all different walks of life today who love golf as kids, that this is where they came to.
Yeah.
And we either hired them or we took care of them or we let them play. There was a lot of
Oh, the crazy scramble
Good
golf
stuff.
tournaments. Remember back when we get
The
pink flamingo.
Dave was involved in a lot of those. I was out playing golf, but I remember those are the heydays, the shotguns
heydays.
between 85 and 95, right?
I can't speak to
No
that.
comment.
No comment. No comment.
None.
I only had one time that the park director came to me the day after and said, "They can't come back."
Yeah.
Only one time.
Yeah.
Well, Neil, that
So 4 years later, they did come back,
Yeah.
and they invited him to be the guest of honor.
Yeah.
He had just
Yeah.
retired, so he
Yeah.
came back
Oh,
as
yeah,
the
for sure.
guest of honor,
classic.
and he happily did it.
Yeah, that's classic.
Well, a good point. Dave alluded to the city of Santa Cruz. This is a city-owned property. We're in a relationship, a long-term relationship with the city of Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And that is very important to us. I mean, it's really a unique relationship in the sense that going on our 55th year, my dad really set the foundation for Dave and certainly brother Mike, who's not here today. He had his own little feet in this puzzle, in this print. But when you're working with city government, you've got to have a good relationship. It's got to be a two-way street,
Right.
because they're owners and operators. This is not like a place that our family owns and operates at our own discretion or own will. So I think it's really important that the message gets across that my dad was very good at setting up that standard for us as kids. Not really in the workplace, but at home. Just understanding the fact that it's a two-way street. We got to work with other people.
It's all about trust.
Other governments.
Yeah.
and,
It's all about
and other
trust.
And you don't get long-term contracts like our family has. There's really not another contract in the state other than the Morton family that's been running the Sacramento properties, Hagen Oaks and Land
No, so
Park.
that's a tribute to your dad.
Yeah, no, Gary really
Right?
set the foundation for that, and we've all benefited from it. I
Look
mean,
how this
obviously-
place has changed over the years. I mean,
Yeah.
one improvement after the other.
His old saying was, he goes, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said.
That's right.
That was just his thing.
Wasn't there talk a few years ago about building houses up here and not having and
This is always zoned recreation.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
I don't think they
it's
could.
one of DeLaviega's wills or in his trust is recreation destination. You could never say they can't unring the bell, but the fact is, in his trust and his deed, when he gifted it to the state of California, and then the state gifted it to the county, and then the county gifted the city of Santa Cruz to get the golf course done. That was always the intent. So,
did you guys have many rounds of golf with your dad? Were you able to get plenty of golf in with
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole family?
brother Mike started.
As you know, Neil, I'm the non-golfer in the family.
No, you play the game well. So
Yeah,
you,
but
you
again,
put yourself down a lot.
It's all
but-
it's if you look at relatively speaking, I am the non-golfer. The big joke was I was the basketball player, and I've never played an organized game of basketball in my life. But that's the running joke. So I played enough. I played with him, but Tim and Mike certainly played more
Yeah.
because there was more kind of future look to see what they could do, and,
Yeah.
and really brought them.
Yeah.
Do you remember playing golf with him? Do you remember the first time you beat him?
I don't.
No. Okay.
I don't. I do remember when I was like 7 years old and I couldn't get it over the canyon on number 3. And I'd come home after a round of golf by myself and my dad would say, "Hey, what'd you shoot today?" And I said, "I shot a 33." And the par was 36 on the front nine. He says, 33, wow. That's a great score for your age. And the next week,
Yeah.
how'd you play? I said, well, I shot a 31. Oh, man. For my birthday, he gave me a little wristwatch, and he said, "Son, when you go out and play, every time you hit the ball, just click it once. Okay, it's going to keep your score for you." I said, perfect. So I got to about the fourth hole, and I was at 31, and I stopped. I didn't do it anymore. I played the last 7 holes, 6 holes. Got home. How'd you do? I said, 31. And guys, that's a
really
great score. And he had me just pegged, right? I mean, I just wanted to shoot the lowest score I could ever shoot at that age. But
Right.
he had a great way of getting the message across without any volume to it
Yeah.
or any.
He wasn't a yeller or
Yeah.
a screamer.
So I understood that. That he was probably 58 or 60, but he had a great way about himself.
Yeah.
He was just a lovely man for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Many hours upstairs in the grill, of course, with George and Goose and that.
Lance.
And
Yeah, we weren't of the age that we could spend time up there with him at
Yeah.
that point. During the heyday of the De La Viega Golf Lodge,
yeah.
we were home doing homework, probably in bed
Yeah. No, you're right.
before Dad would show up.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, when you live half a mile away,
Yeah, not even that.
he did. He had his moments, but
Well, you know, all part of that is, you know, as I was talking about earlier about him getting out in front of the community, going to the breakfast clubs and the Chamber of Commerce, and you know, any speaking engagement you do to put this golf course in a better light, to promote it, to give it exposure. Some of the reasons, or a lot of the reasons he felt it was important to go up to the restaurant after hours,
Oh, yeah.
was to be able to get in front of the golfers, the clientels, the
Yeah.
people of the community,
He was schmoozed.
out of
Full
the
schmooze,
quote unquote office, golf shop behind the counter, and just gives people a better opportunity to approach on a social basis and really hear what their ideas, concerns, or needs or wants are. And it was just another example of him making himself available. And it really made a big difference.
so
And he got him out. He got from behind the counter.
yeah.
Yes.
Got him
So an
underneath.
interesting
Very
little
much.
caveat to that is, Sunnyside Country Club in Fresno, when he started there, they had tea times, right? Just people would sign up for a tea time. He kind of said, hey, we don't need to have that. And so his role was to not be behind the counter checking people in. He was in the grill making
Putting groups together.
Hey, Neil, you guys ready to go? Yeah, okay. And it's like you just went when it was your time. There was no rush. And so coming here, all of a sudden it's tea times.
Yeah.
But his mindset is you go upstairs and you learn about these people. You put groups together. You form relationships.
Yeah.
You help to forge these things. And so that's really where he excelled, was interacting with people on a golfer level.
I think that is a really good point that should be restated. Like Dave said, when he arrived at Sunnyside Fresno, they were going with tea times. He changed it to a no tea time program, literally took the membership of a private club,
But that was a private club, so
But
that's,
made-
that's a big change.
and made
Huge,
games,
right? Huge
made
change.
so it got away from the little pods of people that always played with each other. So now he's putting games together based on people that were here and ready to play. So all these folks at that club that ordinarily wouldn't play with this certain individual,
Did that go
are
down
now-
well? Did that go down well over
It
there?
created. It's still
It's
there today.
Still there today, really.
You just go down there and you pick up a game.
Yeah.
And he wants at one. I won't say the golf course, but at one point I said, why, would you ever consider joining a private club or something like that? And he said, why would I ever join a golf club where I have to make a tee time? And that was his mind. It's like, if I'm going to join a club, I want to walk out, hit some balls, have some lunch, do whatever, and then when I'm ready to go, I go.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so this was different for him, the municipal. He was born and raised not as a country club kid, but my grandfather worked at a country club.
Correct.
He worked the range.
Yeah.
He worked at Valley High Country Club. He worked at Sunnyside. So he was in the club
Yeah.
process, and the public was different.
Did your dad want to be a professional golfer on the tour?
He was.
He was.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And then
Or-
when did he decide that he wanted to now be, kind of be a golf professional?
I think when he had his third kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I was born in '65. I think he had finished, but that's a good question. I mean, I do know the story, and Dave can certainly inject more. But he knew that he had some skill. I mean, he played the tour in like '61, '2, and '3. Played in more AT&Ts. Back then it was called the Crosby Clam Bank. He played. I played in 4 or 5. He played in like 7 or 8.
So in like
knows?
62, 61 or 62, he finished 5th at the Crosby.
Yeah. So my best finish.
Know
there
what he
was
made? Know what
25th.
his prize money was?
$180. I'm guessing.
$505.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he had a lot of game, but he knew, and he'll tell you the story if he's still alive and with us. Eventually he took that platform of playing tour golf, and he literally went to each city that he played in and took the time to meet the general manager, the pro, talk about their setup, the width of the cart path. Are you pouring aggregate? Are you pouring concrete? What's your maintenance yard setup? How big's the square footage of your maintenance yard? What kind of tools are you using? What's your retail footprint? Is it 3,000 square? So he was gathering all the little tools for his toolkit
Yeah, for his next career.
to where he wanted to go.
But it was
next.
also not. It wasn't the professional golf of today.
The money,
right?
yeah.
You finish 5th in a PGA event and you win $500. You don't live very well like that, especially if you have a wife and children.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was a different time.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
being a club professional was steady, a good job, and it had the kind of the relationship and the gravitas that worked well.
Yeah.
It translated well.
Yeah,
It
no,
was a good job.
He played the PGA Championship. He
Yeah.
played at in San Antonio, or in Pecan Valley, where Julius Boris won. And Gary had some great stories. He created a lot of
Well,
relationships
he,
out
has,
there.
he, he did have some great stories.
Yeah, the one that what was it? When he sat in the locker room at the LA Open in '62 with his good friend Al Geiberger, and that was Nicklaus's first pro tournament. And Jack had made the cut on the number, had a decent weekend, finished 26th, and my dad looks at Geiberger and says, "This kid doesn't stand a chance."
So he was a good judge of talent too.
18 majors later. Hey, my dad, he loved telling that story.
He said the same thing to me at one
He
point.
would have lost that bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was just classic.
Was your dad a card player? Was he play gin rummy with the
Yeah.
boys up there?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
played cards.
Yeah.
He didn't gamble up there much. I mean, that was really a.
Not that we're aware of.
I mean, that was an extension of his business. That restaurant upstairs. It really wasn't his place to play cards.
Yeah.
But he played cards with his friends at the house and stuff like that.
Boy, he was loved by everybody, huh? All the people that can come through my mind today coming up here. The
Yeah.
Aldos and
Yeah, there's not a lot of folks that I can think of. I can't think of anyone,
yeah.
honestly, that would speak negatively about him.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be tough, right? I mean, we grew up as kids. I mean, we kind of joked that we started working here when we were 8, but we were working behind the counter when we were 13, 14 years
You were
old.
cheap labor, my friend.
Huh?
You were cheap labor.
We were cheap labor, and so when we would be interacting with someone that was an adult, you know, they try to take advantage of us. And I'll never forget times that my dad would come out from the back, and he would deal with people in a way that made them kind of think that they had won the argument. But when they turn around and walk out, you could see the moment that they realized that they had just been kind of
Yeah.
Cut up.
and put down.
Yeah.
And it was pretty funny to watch as a kid, to stand back and watch your dad go against
Well, your
someone
dad-
else
your dad-
in a very unique way.
Yeah.
It wasn't screaming and yelling. It was really cool.
Well, you have to be tough because how many employees were here then? Back then he was working here 20, 30,
No.
more?
When he started here?
Yeah, well, I mean, what during his term here? I mean,
Oh, shit. Excuse me. At one point, we had
Shit.
60
yeah.
employees.
So you got to be tough, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when he started, it was he and two or three other guys in the shop and a couple cart kids. That was
Yeah.
it. And then
Yeah.
it grew, right? And then we started working here, you know, summers. Wake up, go to the golf course, pull up carts, come back in the afternoon, pick up the range,
Clean cards.
get in fights with each other, throw golf balls at each other on the range. It was just chaos.
Oh yeah, it was chaos.
It was
You
chaos.
were, huh? Yeah, but you were free though.
You knew there was a problem when Gary came out on a cart. You're like, oh shit,
Yeah,
what
what's
did we
going
do?
on here?
Someone would come up the 9th fairway and come in and say, hey, Gary, the boys are fighting on the driving range.
Oh my God, yeah.
You
fist
come barreling
fight.
down
Yeah.
there. What the hell are you guys doing? We used to, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, you know,
We had some fun.
the thing that, I mean, Dad, you know, bless his heart, you know, you alluded to the fact that, you know, he was loved by many, if not all. That's a really unique trait. Yeah, I think it was, probably saw how his dad operated, which is our grandfather, more stern, I think, if not that we were able to see
Quieter.
that, quieter. My dad, you know, grew up in, I would say, certainly below middle class. He lived out, like Dave said, in Reading. My grandfather, they lived right below Shasta Dam when it was being
Like
built.
Shasta
Yeah.
City.
That was
actually.
called Shasta City or Project City. Literally, when they were building the dam, it was a little clapboard house, and I think it really resonated all the way through his career. He had a real quality about people, real love, genuine love for people.
Yeah.
He just loved being a part of the municipal golf side, the public golf aspect. He always said, another great quote was, you know, at the private courses, the pros change. At the public courses, the people change. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, a lot of private courses, they do get rolled through their cycle of having new pros. we're unique that we've been operating here, in our middle of our 5th decade, which is very unique. But he loved the fact that the faces here were always interchanging. It was just a new crew or new crop a lot, right?
In the mix of people at this golf course, there was, so when I was working here, it was kind of the peak of the volume. We did 90,000 rounds a year.
Crazy.
You know that. You were here.
Crazy.
It was crazy. And the men's club was huge. At that time, it was called the men's club. It hadn't been morphed into the golf club.
Correct.
But I'll never forget.
1,200 members at the peak.
I'll never forget.
1,200. Wow.
Art Danner.
Yeah, he was the
Rest
district
his
attorney.
soul.
Or
He was a district attorney.
Yeah.
He gets paired with a dude in a men's club tournament. And they're walking down the first fairway and they're, making small talk. And Dan's like, hey, my name's Dan. He's like, oh, my name's so-and-so. And he's like, what have you been up to? He goes, well, it's my first time out. I just got out of jail.
I've never heard this.
I've been in jail for the last 8 years.
Whoa.
And he's like, really? He's like, well, what do you do, Dan? And I'm like, well, I'm the district attorney. Great.
Perfect.
They went out, 18 holes. At that point, that's the beauty of golf. It just strips away all of that pretense.
You don't know who you're playing
You
with.
don't know who you're playing with, and nor should you care.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of public golf, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Private golf, you don't necessarily have that same thing, because to be a member, there's a certain thing that you have to have, right? Whether it's money or status or something like
Prestige.
that. So,
Correct. Yeah,
So-
and Dad alluded to that. It's truth today. If you put a little podium on the first tee at DeLavier and you put a little sheet, name and occupation, you're going to get every variation of the community.
Yeah.
Professional surfer, landscaper, contractor,
unemployed,
business owner.
Punk rocker.
Yeah, well, you're what? We had a little event out here today.
vlogger.
You see
Yeah.
some of the friends out there
You.
that are playing. You saw them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to run into up here.
But yeah, no, it's been a wonderful place. Dave and my father, and certainly Mike had his little footprint here too to carry it on. And we missed our 50th anniversary due to COVID. It was going to be May 14th of 2020. Obviously, COVID hit on the 13th of March, 14th of March. So we have plans in the making right now to really celebrate our 55th year. So next year we're in the inner workings right now of a celebration.
Nice. Good.
To
Deserve it.
And,
show off-
and it's
show
weird,
off.
Neil. I mean, you think about 55 years here.
Crazy.
It's nutty that this place has been around this long, and we've been fortunate enough to be here this entire time. I mean, I drive up. There's times where I'll drive up here. There was a point, where there was contract issues. I wasn't involved in, whether it was Tim and Jamie or it was my dad. And I've driven up here thinking, I could not imagine driving up this road and not being able to walk behind the counter and
Grab a sleeve of balls.
grab a sleeve of balls, put it on Timmy's tab, and have someone else operating this place.
Yeah.
It just
No, it wouldn't be right.
it would blow my mind
Yeah.
if that ever happened.
Yeah.
Well, the pros and cons. The pros of the longevity that we've had is a direct reflection of my father again. You don't take the business for granted. You operate based on the contract that you're under. You don't. There's no shortcuts to it. When the contract's getting ready to be up to term, maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years prior, you start renegotiating. You never let it get too close to the end of the term.
Yeah.
And you really, the city likes the fact that there's the continuity is you've got one operator for so long. Historically, they can get any information they want. Usually cities and municipal governments, they get new city managers, and new councils, and new finance directors, and new parks directors. So they're always changing, and that's just life. That's just retirement. That's just business. But the length of time we've had here has really been a win-win for both
And you
us
have
and
you have the support of the town.
Yeah.
People in Santa Cruz play golf here. This is where you come play
Yeah.
golf.
But we don't take that for granted.
No.
We take our business seriously in a fun way, but we really we've had a great relationship with the city of Santa Cruz. And it's really the little bricks that my dad put in place back in the day. 32 years he worked here. It'll be hard to believe it'll be 25 or 6 when next year ends with me. So
Crazy.
Francis Farley right there, former kickboxing champion. Look at he's out here. Got a great story about
Oh, yes,
Francis.
Francis, yeah.
Yeah, when he won the 3rd flight of the city amateur, like in
Hey, buddy.
when he won the third flight of the Santa Cruz Amateur in
Yeah.
2016, we never had a better membership drive the next year ever. Everybody that heard that Francis could win a tournament here, they all wanted to join.
Yeah.
Francis, how are you?
Say hi to the
Doing good.
say hi to the adoring public out there.
Hey, bud, I'm good.
You say hi to,
sorry.
we're doing a little live interview right here, Francis.
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
What's this
We're
all
talking about my father, Garrett. Do you ever know my dad at all?
I never did meet him.
Okay.
You never met Gary?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
I might have. I doubt it.
Yeah. We're doing a little tribute.
I remember
show.
first time I came up though,
Yeah.
I go, can I get on? And they're like, nope, we're all packed, we're booked, don't have no room. You came out of the office. Oh, no. Yeah. We have an opening right now.
That's what Gary would have done.
How did
you
he-
do not deny
No,
somebody to play.
Everybody has.
We'll find a spot for you.
I guess I was at the counter.
No.
No, you can't play.
And Francis said, well, what's it going to cost? I said, it's $36, and you get to play one hole. Go out to 18, and you're done. He did it.
Yeah,
No.
but he's lying. It was $45.
That's funny.
Oh gosh.
Well, I'll let you enjoy.
Thanks, bud.
Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I remember.
I need a lot of
I
luck.
remember I played in the city amateur. Pete Bender was my caddy.
Oh, Pete Bender, boy, he's still out there hoofing with Rocco.
I never forget
Crazy.
this guy who we played with thought he was pretty good, you know. And, and Pete got tired looking for his ball.
Right.
So Pete finds his ball on the right side of 7, goes in, it's out of bounds, right? Pete goes, no, I'm not.
Not even looking.
You don't look, he throw the ball out the fairway.
I love it. Oh, my God.
So it's so funny you
Fun.
say that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pink Flamingo was fun. I remember that.
Shadowbrook, Bocce Cellar.
Shadowbrook,
CB
Bocce.
Hannigan's.
Oh my God.
Um,
CB Hannigan's tournament.
There were times where there were helicopters landing on the 18th green.
Yeah.
There were carts being driven intentionally into the lake on 18, being pulled out and driven in again. There were people on carts being stopped at the Highway 1
Intersection.
on-ramp
Yeah. Yeah.
off of
Ocean.
Graham Hill Road,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
trying to get to Bocce's,
Yeah.
dressed up in outfits.
We were young then, but I remember my dad getting the call from the CHP was, Mr. Loustalot, we have cart 44 down here on Ocean and Highway 1. And the gentleman, we won't name the name, said he was just driving to the end of the event tournament party at the Bocce Cellar. But we know who that was.
Yeah, we
A
do.
great business owner and a friend. But yeah, they did some wild stuff.
And there were times, I mean, this was kind of wide open up here in the beginning, right? We had a cart barn, but it was easy to get into. Tim and I, there countless times my dad
It was
would come
like
in
a
the
wild-
morning
it
on
was
on a Saturday morning, say, "Get in the car, guys," and we'd literally drive across town, and there'd be a cart parked in some front yard
It's the
on
Wild West.
King Street.
Right, King Street.
Oh, yeah.
So Tim and I are driving a club car
Oh, yeah.
down Water Street at the stoplight,
So
ocean
fun.
of water at
Yeah.
like 6:30 in the morning, and he's behind us in his car, and
So
we're just like
fun.
waiting for the light to change.
my
It was
God.
like crazy.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks, Neil, for
And then-
having us.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys. Yeah,
great.
Very
Yeah.
fun.
Great chance to
I
talk
think
about
was it
that.
you that drove the cart into the golf shop?
No. I did not drive the car into the golf shop. It wasn't me.
Oh, it was
That
someone
would have
else.
been a memory. Who was it? More like probably Whitman.
I know
probably.
who it was.
Hey, Kenny,
but I can't tell.
come on over here real quick. We'll finish off with Mr. Silva.
Yeah.
He's got a long history here.
He's been here forever.
Hope you have a lot of video
Yeah.
tape.
I know. I'm leaving an hour and a half for him. I'm going to give him the old.
Yeah. Why don't you ask him a couple questions? That'd be great. And you Photoshop all that, whatever you do.
Hey, Kenny, get over here.
Come on over here real quick, Kenny. Why don't you sit in my spot for a second? Get in front of the
Okay,
camera.
you got.
You got 3 minutes.
I got
Talk.
I got one question.
Sit down for a second. Seriously.
Kenny, I got one question
No,
for you.
You've been.
Well, I'm going to tell one story too that I've
All right,
never
what's the-
told.
What's the story?
Uh-oh.
I used to spend a lot of time.
Introduce yourself to the camera.
My name's Ken Silva. Been a member here since it opened in 1970. Been president here about 6, 7 different times. Yeah, spent a lot of time with Gary back in the days when we had like 1,200 members.
Yeah.
And we could do whatever we wanted to
I know it's
do.
the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do it anymore. But anyway,
You have a good story?
we was talking with his dad one day about the three sons, and he says, of all 3 sons, he says, Dave has the best swing of all 3 sons.
You never told me that.
I love it. That's great.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the second part of the comment, though?
Yeah.
But he can't get out of his own head?
No,
Something along
he
those
never
lines?
said anything like that. He just said of all three sons, Dave has the best swing.
I was going to say the same thing, but
Yeah.
you know, I think I'm going to keep it
You're
level,
gonna, yeah.
keep it even.
And then there's one other story.
Sure,
and
go
that's
ahead.
His best friend, okay, Baritone.
Barry.
Barry's
Yep.
father was a good friend.
Yeah. Eli.
Yep.
Yes,
He was a good goal. He was a stick too, huh?
yes.
Yeah.
State amateur champion.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10
So
years apart.
he plays in this tournament here, and he wins a set of irons. And they were drinking a lot. Okay.
That's a shocker.
Have you heard this story, Dave?
I don't know where this one's going.
And
And
he-
who was drinking? Was
anyway-
this Barry or Eli?
Eli and Gary.
Oh, Eli and
Eli
Gary.
and Gary,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And so
Because it could be
Eli
generation.
took off, okay, but he didn't take his clubs with him that he had won in this tournament. So his father said, okay, there was 4 bars that they would always, go
Frequent.
to.
Yeah.
Eli mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he left the 4-iron and 5-iron, 3-iron and 4-iron at this bar, and then the 5-iron, 6-iron at this bar, the 7-iron, 8-iron at this bar, and the 9-iron. And then
Yeah.
every time Barry's father went to his bar, he said, hey, you left your clubs here. He goes, I did, yeah. But you only took 2 of them.
That's awesome.
I mean, we only have 2 of them that they left here. He goes, here.
It's classic.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it took him to get his full set back.
Yeah,
One day.
4 days?
Probably
One day.
Probably
One day.
one day. Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. No problem.
Thanks, Dave.
Neil, it's
Neil,
a pleasure.
I appreciate you letting us do this.
Thanks, Tim.
I think it's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I will say, Neil, we've spared you.
I know.
From being
I know.
kind of
There was some dark
exposed,
expose.
so to speak.
well, that's
Wait.
more of your history
For-
together.
yeah.
I mean, once the camera goes off, I'll say
No,
a couple.
it's like we know that we can. Me, him, and Andy Whitman, we cannot get in a 50-yard radius. It's a 50-yard radius. This is as close as one can get. Right? We're lucky to be alive.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Trips to other golf courses where,
There's
what would we blow on the DUI thing?
Oh, well,
I was just going to write 3 initials on this table once that's off. Starts with a V and ends with an N. And there's only one more letter in the middle.
Who was that? Oh, Van. Oh my God.
I was too young, right?
Yeah.
look at how quick he's turning the camera off.
I wasn't even involved, but
I'm
I
not
remember.
going to say a word.
Well, I got to ask you one
that
question.
was.
Okay, say goodbye, Ken.
Goodbye,
Is that Lynn's friend or no?
Get in here, Dave. Get down there, Dave.
Tim.
Cheerio. I'm done.
Dave.
Okay, for De La Viega, what's the phone number up here if you want to come play golf?
Website's www.delaviegagolf.com
Go.
and phone number's 831-423-7214. If you call the grill,
Yeah.
831-423-1600.
It's been an honor to sit with you guys today. Thank you so
Thanks,
much. You
Neil.
guys are good friends. And
Thanks, Neil.
hey, Gary, we love you.
Thanks, Brother Dave. Thanks, Kenny.